Izuku Midoriya was born like a child that was far different than any other child. He is far from your normal child, and what I mean by that is not that he's ugly, not that he's some crazy being, not that he's terrifying, not that he has skin as hard as rock. No, he is a lot different than you could possibly imagine because his intelligence is almost godlike. His intelligence is totally off the spectrum, and it seemed like it was a complete insane idea because when he was only 2 days old, he began to speak his first words. Izuku Midoriya was an absolute prodigy, someone who is an absolute freak of nature in terms of just how intelligent he truly is. And it seems like that enhanced intelligence has been an interesting gift because at a young age of only 4 years old, he was already educated enough to do things on the level of high schoolers. This kid who is 4 years old, already smart enough to deal with things at a high school level, and he continues to progress at a insane and rapid rate, so much so that his mind and his intelligence expands on beyond just your normal intellect. It expands beyond just your normal school-based level. And when he gets just a little bit older, he's beyond all of that school-based stuff. I mean, we're talking high school, college, graduate level. I mean, he's at a totally different level. It's as if he absorbs information at such a rapid rate that it makes everyone around him look like an absolute idiot. And what I mean by it goes beyond just a school level is that Izuku Midoriya begins to think so far into this other world of, well, heroes. He's now thinking about so much more, thinking about everything that could possibly happen. But his mother, when testing him for a quirk, it seems as if they only can dignify that he's super intelligent. That's about it. They don't know anything else about him. And they don't know if he even has anything else to do with his quirk. Do they just think that he might just be the smartest being in the world? Now, that is no slouch. That is nothing that is bad by any means. But it's not like he's some extremely powerful being that can, push things around, pick up buildings and stuff like that. At least that's not what they think. But soon they would realize that they are extremely wrong about that because Izuku is more powerful than they could possibly imagine. Izuku Midoriya might be extremely intelligent, and as he ages, he gets smarter and smarter, and around the age of about 12, he may be just, flat out the smartest person on the planet and have this enhanced intellect that nobody could even touch, thinking 10 steps, maybe even 100 steps ahead of everyone. But soon they would realize what he's truly capable of when something would occur at school. It seems as if Izuku, he may be smart, but he still gets bullied for the most part by a lot of people. But he doesn't really think about the bullying very much, thinking that these people and their lives, well, they don't matter that much. And it might sound cruel, but that's what Izuku feels like, that these people don't necessarily matter that much at all. And the reason for this is they're not going to go on to be strong and powerful heroes. They're not going to go on to be the best to ever do it. They're not going to be on to make some crazy effect on the world and on the planet, in Japan, or maybe not even in the city. So, who cares? Who cares? Right? That's what Izuku feels like. I mean, who cares if basically they're going to bully him a little bit because how smart he is. And he doesn't mind at all. And, well, let's just say things begin to change drastically when someone tries to actually hurt Izuku. Or hurt Izuku. Now, Izuku would just be sitting there, just a normal day in school. And immediately someone would come and try to hurt him, try to hit him. And when they would do this, it would be the worst mistake of their lives. Because when they would try to strike down Izuku with their quirk, and even Bakugo himself would try to explode a Deku with his quirk, he would get hit by it, stumbling backwards, staggering to his feet, and they would look at him to see that he is slightly wounded. He has a cut on him and also an explosion mark, but then slowly but surely, but pretty damn quick actually, it would just disappear. It seems as if his body would begin to regenerate, and Izuku would look at his hands and look at his body and see that it's completely fine, telling them to back off or else. And as he says this, they don't back off. They continue to try and hurt Izuku, but soon they would realize this was a horrible idea. Because when Izuku tries to move, when there was an inherent danger and there's this want to stop someone from hurting somebody, aka hurting himself, he begins to move faster than they could even recognize, showing off some sort of superhuman-like speed. And then out of nowhere, he begins to pick them up basically by their shirts, easily picking them both up, slamming them to the ground, immediately realizing that he might be so much more than just intelligence, that he might be so much more than just your run-of-the-mill, extremely smart person. Izuku Midoriya is entering a state of godlike proportions. Izuku has superhuman-like speed, superhuman-like strength, regeneration. I mean, these are things that he had no idea he would have because his intelligence just overshadowed everything. He never tried to run extremely fast. He never tried to pick up someone twice his size. He never tried to do any of these things. So the fact that he's able to basically do all of it very quickly seems to him that he actually has this within his powers. It seems like there is something stored within him so much greater than he can possibly imagine. Even with that said, he feels like he has even more. He feels something dormant within him, something that is beyond even the comprehension of human beings, something that would only be suitable for the gods, that would only be suitable for this different type of godlike being, and he has it within him. He just doesn't know how to activate it just yet. Maybe it's an emotional thing, maybe it's something else, but he's not sure just yet, and this is the only thing that his intelligence would stump him on to a large degree. But he would soon learn what that is. But for now, I mean, let's just be honest, there is no complaints about being superhuman on every level. Because, well, let's just say he's going to be easily protecting himself from here on out, especially through the years. Now, time would pass, and nobody would mess with Izuku. Frankly, he would become pretty damn popular. At the end of the day, strength in this world is what matters. Strength is what obviously matters in this world, and at the end of the day, people really cling on to the idea of you having a strong quirk or something like that. Now, this is the level that Izuku is at. He is now scaring everybody from really messing with him in general. They don't want to mess with him. They think that he's not only a freak, but obviously extremely powerful. So you get a bit of a split. You get the people that want to be his friends because, well, he's extremely powerful and they could probably use him maybe or use him to set them up or anything they can think of. And then you get the other part of people who are absolutely terrified of him and they don't want anything to do with him because they feel as if he's going to, well, kill them. Now, there are maybe a few stray people there that just absolutely despise Izuku, like Katsuki Bakugo, because, well, Izuku has shown that he is so much better and just so much greater than Bakugo that he doesn't want to swallow that pill. He hates the idea that Bakugo is better than him, and he wants to make sure, or Bakugo wants, or excuse me, that Izuku is better than Bakugo, and that Bakugo just wants to make sure that he can somehow surpass Izuku. But we all know it's never going to be that simple because, well, Bakugo may have been blessed by a quirk that is pretty powerful, but Izuku has been blessed by the gods, blessed by the gods to give him powers that nobody could possibly even imagine. And soon he would continue to basically age and continue to progress through middle school. And finally, it would be time for him to more or less prepare for the entrance exam of, well, UA high school. Now, one day in middle school or in his classroom, the teacher would talk about the entrance exam of UA, speaking on the fact that both Izuku and Bakugo are trying to get in. And everybody's in agreement that they both should be able to get in, but honestly, Izuku's probably going to be the one that truly leads the way, because Izuku is pretty damn, like, high up there in terms of power and strength and all of the above. So they truly believe that, that's going to happen that way. That Izuku is going to be the number one person and is going to be the number one person in terms of progression and in terms of being that level. So he would be kind of celebrated by the class, and Bakugo would continue to get more and more jealous and more frustrated, because at the end of the day, that's what Bakugo has been doing. Bakugo does not like Izuku. He wants the attention, even if he doesn't want to admit that, but still, he is basically angry that Izuku is getting all this attention. Now, with all that said, they would continue talking about different heroes and different things like that, and Izuku's day would eventually be over, but his day basically in school would be over. But that's not the only thing that is going to be over, or basically enter a new stage of everything, because guess what? This is the first time something truly crazy is going to happen to Izuku. Because after this day, after he's done with school, he would actually walk home the normal way he does. And that normal way is always the long way. Izuku believes that his time away from home and just his time only with himself allows him to think deeper thoughts, allows him to think a totally different spectrum of ideas. So he sits there, walking beneath a bridge, the same bridge he always walks beneath. Eyes closed, but it seems like mind is completely open. He walks through thinking about everything, thinking about the universe, thinking about the world, thinking about being a hero, if any of this truly matters, and what is he truly striving for? Is he striving for more intelligence? Is he striving for being a hero? Is he striving for fame or fortune? He has no clue. And this is the only thing he has no clue on. He feels like he's hunting for something, as if there's something out there bigger for him and the people he cares about, but he doesn't know quite what it is. Well, that's until the thought of that would stop. He would hear things beneath him, he would sense things around him, and he could feel something coming closer. As soon as he thinks about this, a giant burst would come out of the sewers. The manhole cover would slam against the roof of the basically ceiling of the bridge, or the underneath of the bridge, and immediately this person, sludge, this creature, would tell him that he needs his body, that he's coming for him, so he needs his body now. In which Izuku would look at him and tell him to turn around, stop, go and face this person that is chasing him, because that person will be more forgiving than the person that stands in front of him now. Izuku would see this being not listen, thinking that this kid is just throwing around empty threats, and Izuku could feel the power that he once felt before channel through his entire body. He can feel something that is burning within him, but also burning around him all at the same time. His eyes begin to glow this beautiful red color, and it seems as if this beam of some sorts, something telling him to say that this right here is known as the Omega beams, and the aura, the feeling, the cosmic energy that he's feeling around him and through him and channeling within him is known as the Omega effect. He begins to fire these beams from his eyes, which immediately lock on to the sludge villain, but there's no way he would be able to dodge them anyways. And as he shoots at the sludge villain, they smash into the sludge villain, and as they do, it disintegrates, not only 95% of the sludge villain, but it also puts the sludge villain completely out of commission, where there's only a tiny piece of him left. Izuku stops, realizing that he doesn't want to kill anybody, but that's what this power is. The power and the curse of being so powerful in itself could lead to him killing as well. But here's the thing. What's stopping him from ending the life of a villain that is going to hurt so many more? Why imprison them? Why keep them in a prison and stop instead of just stopping them permanently? Izuku is thinking about it logically in a way, but also has to try and think about it through the lens of a hero, through the lens of morality, in which he begins to shake his head thinking that this thing sucks, that this sucks. Thinking about things through the lens of morality is the worst possible thing you could do, and it flat out sucks. Because to him, he believes that if a villain dies, then people will be saved. But of course, it's never that simple, is it? You have to treat these villains like they truly matter, and treat the villains like they, are good, that they could be better. Izuku shakes his head and calms himself down as just that tiny piece of the sludge villain crawls around and slowly approaches him. He would swipe that tiny piece of the sludge villain away, and a mouth would come up on it and begin to speak to Izuku, asking how the hell he did that. Where's the rest of his body? I mean, what's going to happen? Is he going to regenerate back? In which Izuku would wave his hand and say that he would assume that he has regenerative powers as well, and to shut up because he's thinking. As he says this, All Might would come bursting out of the manhole cover as well, and All Might would say, "I am here," and Izuku would be confused. "You're late. Like, really late." Izuku would tell him to put that thing in a bottle, and they'll deal with. He can send it off to whatever prison that he needs to go to. In which All Might would ask, "Did he do this?" In which Izuku says that no, the sludge villain tripped, fell, and splattered everywhere on his own. He would walk away and immediately just leave, and as he turns the corner, All Might would chase after him, but when All Might would turn the corner as well, Izuku would be gone. It's as if Izuku doesn't want to speak with who a lot of people know as their hero in terms of All Might. But Izuku doesn't want to speak to All Might. He doesn't want to even think about certain things at the moment, so he doesn't want to interact with someone like All Might. He learned a long time ago that yes, he may be the symbol of peace for many, and that is a good thing for this world, but it doesn't mean he has to look up to him, and frankly he doesn't, because his intelligence is far beyond to looking up to heroes at this moment. And Izuku Midoriya, well, let's just say his intellect is just beyond what he would obviously want, or beyond anything that anyone else would even be able to comprehend. So he doesn't really care about the idea of looking up to somebody, to having a role model. No, he doesn't need it. He is his own role model. And if he seeks out to be a better person, he can force himself to be that through his intellect and through his breakdown and through his deduction of becoming that better person. And it's that simple. At least it's that simple for him. He would head home, and he would even speak to his mother about this relatively quickly, just kind of nodding at the idea of basically fighting a villain and destroying him and whatever, right? He would briefly say that, and his mother would be worried, but it seems as if he's fine. Not only fine, actually thriving. It seems like he enjoyed the experience. He was able to learn a couple things that he didn't have the chance to think about without actually fighting a villain in itself. And Izuku would be kind of actually happy, which is definitely an awkward thing, because when's the last time they've seen Izuku, flat out this happy? But that's kind of beyond the point. And Izuku would basically just tell his mother, don't worry about it, everything's fine, and that he's going to start his 10-month regimen of training, studying, and being ready for UA. Even though he knows that studying is practically useless, and he's going to ace literally everything, and his intellect will go beyond all of it. Now, he could have sat here and made support items and done this and done that, and probably became extremely rich, but this version of Izuku, let's just say he doesn't really care about all that. His mind is so far beyond everything that the material object, well, it doesn't really matter to him. That's until about, well, 9-ish months into his entire 10-month regimen. His mother would be stressing over bills, over so much stuff, and Izuku would decide that he would help his mother, telling his mother that he needs $100. And she would give him the $100, but she would say that she really doesn't have that much right now. But Izuku would use this $100 to actually interact with any type of fluctuating market and would begin to absolutely just interact with everything that he understands to its maximum degree. And in a matter of 1 month, he would make it so that his mother would not be able, or would not have to, work at all, making a ton of money, and out of nowhere, through stock market, through anything you can think of, and as weird as it is, like, stocks, crypto, anything, he makes a ton of money off of it all. And it's easy for him, very simple, because he can predict literally all of the fluctuations based on what's happened, what has been seen, what the news is, and what everything is going on. He's able to predict companies' downfall, or downfalls, companies' uphill battles, companies' absolute explosions in terms of how good they're potentially going to be and how good they are now, and so on and so forth. He's able to predict it all, and it makes it extremely easy to make a ton of money, and this makes it so his mother doesn't have to worry about money ever again, and also doesn't have to worry about, well, at the end of the day, doesn't have to worry about him, because she obviously was providing for him and doing all these things. So now she doesn't have to worry about it, and she's extremely grateful for that. But soon, the day of the UA entrance exam would finally be upon them. And let's just say this is where Izuku becomes a household name, because when they would go to the entrance exam, obviously we're starting with the written portion of the exam, and let's just say he makes the exam look like an absolute joke, getting a perfect score on the entirety of the exam. And everybody, well, let's just say, is in complete and utter shock, especially the graders, because the graders look at it and see that it is perfect, flawless. It's as if this kid is just on another level of intellect. Yeah, another level. They don't really know much about him. He's never really gone out of his way to, well, basically like show off or show people what he's capable of and stuff like that. He doesn't care. He's never cared. And that level of intellect is the reason for it. He doesn't really mind. Now, with that said, he does obviously pass that written portion of the exam, and there is no, well, worries about the practical, but of course he sits through the entire lecture listening to President Mike talk about what's going to happen. You got the 1-pointers, you got the 2-pointers, you got the 3-point robots, and the 0-point robots. But he says very clearly that the 0-point robots should not be touched. Stay away from them. That it's not a good, actually a good idea for you to even mess with the 0-point robots. And at the end of the day, it's just danger for no reason. And there's no point of really messing with the 0-point robots, and it's just not worth at all, or worth it for them to even even utilize them by any means. Now, with that said, Izuku heads in to take on these so-called robots to get as many points as possible. And this is where he begins to think to himself that he wants to try out his new abilities, you could say, or ability, being known as the Omega Beams. And this would be the perfect chance, because Izuku sits there waiting for it to begin and immediately utilizing the Omega Beams to shoot and disintegrate every single one. Yes, every single robot in existence in that place gets obliterated by Izuku Midoriya, and everybody stands there in complete shock, and the voices or the voice comms would come up and they would say, well, this isn't something they thought would happen, so they're gonna have to figure out a solution for the other students. But congratulations to Izuku Midoriya on his, well, let's just say, very, 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 very insane accomplishment. Izuku would come out and, frankly, Nezu and Aizawa would be waiting, asking him about how he was able to do that. Like, that was absolutely catastrophic and absolutely insane. And Aizawa says that, well, they've never heard about him, but he must be some sort of a prodigy. And frankly, Izuku says that he is not necessarily a prodigy. He has worked for everything he's gotten, but at the same time, he knows he's blessed by, well, what seems to be the gods. In which Izuku says this with a straight face, and Aizawa gets a feeling that this kid is dead serious. I mean, there is no flinching. There is no version of it where he's like, oh, yeah, you know, like, I'm kidding around. No, this is literally him saying this for real, and he truly, truly believes that he is gifted by the gods. And how could you blame him? Because it obviously seems like he is. He obviously seems like he is definitely gifted by the gods, especially based on what he has done and basically what he's capable of, which is insane capabilities that he's capable of. Insane abilities that he's able to basically do throughout this time, in which Izuku continues to show off more and more of what he's going to be capable of, but just not right now. He's going to show it off once he gets into UA, and Aizawa and Nezu make it very clear that there is no way around this. He's definitely going to get in. I mean, obviously there was no questioning there. They assume based on the way he presents himself. Izuku says that yes, that the plan was to always go to UA, and he just wants to try his hand out in hero work and see what it's really like. He tells them that they'll never have to worry about his classes, that he's already beyond that level of learning, and he'll only have to worry about learning things, well, around the hero work, you could say. And that's what matters to him. In which they hear this, and they're not 100% sure if he's serious, but it seems like he definitely is. It's kind of a wild thing to hear a student say, but this student is on a totally different level. He's not your run-of-the-mill student, and he's, well, very far from it. And at the end of the day, Izuku Midoriya makes it very clear the level he's at, and makes it very clear that most likely there's not going to be a single student even close, in which Aizawa can deduce that, without a second thought, and even thinks to himself that there might not be a student even close or even close to him that basically would even be able to stand up to him. And we're talking students even at a level of, well, higher than them, which would be which is absolutely insane when you put it into perspective. But we're talking Class 1A students will not be able to stand up to him, and, well, maybe even Class 3rd-year students may not even be able to stand up to him, which is a scary thought for Aizawa, because what does he teach a kid that has the potential to be the #1 hero faster than you could imagine? And what do you teach a kid who is smarter and more intelligent than every person in the world? Yeah, that is something that is very, very sketchy to basically deal with, and very sketchy, or basically extremely sketchy to deal with throughout this time that he's going to be trying his best to teach a student that practically knows everything that anybody could possibly know before you would even know it. Now, with that said, there's a lot of things Izuku wants to get into, and a lot of things that he wants to do very, very soon once he gets into UA, and he's super, super excited, even if he doesn't show it very well. Now, he would await the letter as a formality at his home, awaiting for the letter to come from UA, and of course it would say, he got in, and that he's in Class 1A, and that he's the #1 student in his class. It's not a surprise. It was an expectation. It was not a, it is not a theory. It was a spoiler, because at the end of the day, he knew exactly what he was capable of, and he knew exactly what type of person he was and is right at this moment. He knows the level he's at, and he knows that he can basically be better than maybe even most pro heroes at this moment. So when his first day of UA High School would come, when he would walk up to those doors, it would seem fitting that he would be approaching a giant door as if he's walking into a brand new world that he, in terms of intellect, has not truly explored just yet. He's seen things, he's watched others do hero work, but he's not experienced it. And once he experiences it, his intellect will then take over, and he'll learn how to be a hero greater than anyone has ever seen. But him learning how to be said great hero, well, does that mean the other heroes aren't so great? Does that mean that the other heroes are doing things incorrectly? Well, I'm not so sure, and maybe Izuku knows way more than we do, because it seems like Izuku believes that they might not be fulfilling their true potential, and maybe hero work is a little bit lower on the scale than they could possibly imagine. But there's only one way to find out, and that's in the future of this What If, and this will be the end of part 1 of What If Deku was the reincarnation of Darkseid. Izuku Midoriya is finally here. UA High School is finally upon him, and it seems as if there's going to be some interesting aspects of this school. When Izuku enters, he sees many different people, and they all just stare at him. A lot of them kind of scared, but a good amount of them actually super interested. One of them, actually being a pink-looking alien by the name of Mina Ashido, runs up to him and immediately asks him if he's the one that destroyed all those robots. She's heard about someone just absolutely obliterating every last one of them, and then a couple other people vouch as well, saying that's exactly what happened. It was these lasers out of nowhere just darted around the entire place as if they had a mind of their own and destroyed every single robot that was on the field. It was absolutely insane, in which all of them begin to ask him if that was really him, in which he says, yeah, that was actually him, and is it an issue or what's going on? In which they tell him that it was one of the most awesome things they've ever seen. Yes, it did suck that they had to come back later that day for a different test or a different version of it, because they had to basically rebuild and reconstruct some of those robots. But still, it was one of the most awesome things they've ever seen, saying that he must be almost as strong as some pro heroes, if not as strong as pro heroes. And it's kind of wild to even think about that someone's in their class to the same strength and level as him, in which they continue to have a conversation about basically his strength, about what he's capable of, and so on. But as they're having this conversation, it seems like someone else has actually entered the room, being that of Shota Aizawa, telling everybody to shut their mouths and sit down. So that's exactly what they're forced to do. And actually, when Izuku looks to his side, he sees Bakugo not too far away, sitting on another desk, looking extremely annoyed and extremely irritated that Izuku Midoriya is even in this classroom. But with that said, it seems like Aizawa continues to talk and tell everybody about what's going to happen. He talks about how they're supposed to have orientation. And yeah, normally that's what hero students have, but he's tired of this whole we're gonna praise you and praise you some more. So this is what he is gonna do. He's gonna force all of them to do an assessment. This assessment is a quirk assessment, and he tells them all to get on their PE uniforms and go outside right now. Immediately, this is exactly what they're forced into doing, going outside and actually starting something that nobody actually knows what's going to happen for the most part. What's going to happen is they're going to fully test the capabilities of their quirks, but some people will definitely be a bit on the, downside of it, because a lot of their quirks aren't dealing in physical attributes, but one of the people that are dealing in massive amounts of physical attributes, especially now, is Izuku Midoriya. Now, as they talk about, okay, so who's gonna go first and so on, Aizawa says that the person that's gonna go first is the person that got first in the entrance exam, and they obviously know who that is. He would point to Izuku Midoriya, and he would tell him to head over and throw this ball as far as possible. Izuku would ask if he truly means as far as possible, in which Aizawa says that he didn't stutter, did he? And immediately Izuku would nod, and he would launch the ball as far as he possibly can, throwing it so hard that it enters the atmosphere. Izuku's arm and strength overall is absolutely insane, and the reader on his little gadget, Aizawa's gadget, tells him that the ball is now, gone infinitely, as if it's now being carried by the gravity of space. Now, this is something extremely crazy. They didn't expect Izuku to be this physically strong, with on top of the fact that he's extremely intelligent, on a totally different level compared to some of the smartest students in UA High School. And on top of that, he has something that he's able to utilize, like the Omega Beams. Obviously, they don't know that's what they're called, but it seems as if he has a powerful ranged attack as well, something that could literally disintegrate robots. I mean, there has to be a limit to what this kid can do, but right now, it doesn't seem like there is one. Everybody watches this and thinks to themselves, and also says out loud, that they think this is going to be so fun. This looks enjoyable. I mean, this is going to be such a fun activity. But immediately Aizawa shuts this down, saying that there is no fun in this school. It is hard work, hero work, and getting better and better, and he's going to make sure they all understand that. Which this would shock everybody once they heard him say this, but he would reference once again that they are going to go and fight dangerous people. So the idea that they want to have fun should be the furthest things from their minds. This is not fun. This is not enjoyable. Seeing people get hurt, watching people get hurt is not enjoyable, and they need to understand that very, very quickly, because if they don't, well, then they're gonna watch a lot of people not only get hurt, but possibly die. Immediately telling him all of this, and he tells them one last time that they better take this seriously, because whoever gets last place, well, they're going home for good, and they're gonna be done with UA High School forever, and they'll be expelled forever. Immediately, everybody sharpens up, and everyone's completely shocked by this, but they decide, okay, they need to completely and utterly just, figure it all out, dial it all in. So they all try their absolute hardest, but there's one thing that is for sure, and that's Izuku is flat out just better than everybody there. And it's really not even close. And it's not even like a contest. Izuku is flat out just so much better than everyone there, and so much better than basically all the people that are, trying to show off their skills and show off what they can do and so on. And Izuku just continues to improve and show more and more and more as he just flat out just kind of gives everyone an absolute show. Yes, they can't really react to it because Aizawa will definitely get mad at the fact that they're oohing and awing over what Izuku can do, but he absolutely gives them a show. Being able to outspeed some of the fastest students in UA, being able to smash the grip strength test, being able to do everything on the brink of perfection. And he gets number one as expected, but the person that would be the very last or at the very bottom would be Hagakure, and this would be Invisible Girl. And Izuku would find that this is kind of illogical for her to be, the last place, and also illogical for her to, be expelled for it. And he even makes this be known, saying that it's kind of dumb that she would be expelled because her powers, her quirk, and her abilities aren't suited for a physical attribute, aren't suited for something like this. Aizawa would smirk a little bit and laugh just a tad and would say, "Oh really? So what is she suited for?" in which Izuku would further expand every possibility that she could possibly utilize for, talking about how for stealth missions she would be great. Talks about for rescue missions she would be way better, for this, for that, for this, that, and he keeps expanding more and more. And then Aizawa would stop him, saying that nobody's getting expelled today, and that Izuku has made some great points, and for now everyone is safe, but that's for now. Aizawa would wave them all off, saying that their day is now, to be continued throughout whatever they have next, and he tells them all to head to orientation and, be praised by some random teachers. Aizawa would walk off as if he just doesn't care what's going on, and everybody else would just, go throughout their day as normal. But what's happening the very next day is something that excites everybody, and that would be actually training with the one and only All Might. Yes, the one and only All Might. Izuku did actually see All Might for a brief moment, but obviously he didn't really care that much about meeting him. I mean, Izuku did enjoy the idea that All Might has, done great things for the world and stuff like that, and he is a pretty big fan, but he's not to the point where he really cares. Maybe if he was younger, maybe if he was around 4 years old still, he would probably be oohing and awing over All Might. But this time around, he's not really that excited. I mean, his intelligence has definitely affected him in that way, and it's definitely matured him in a way that is very, very unusual and very unordinary. So when All Might shows his face, busting through the door saying, "I am here," everybody freaks out, but Izuku sits still and dormant, just listening to All Might and listening to what they're going to be doing. And he hears that they're going to be doing heroes versus villains training. In hearing this, he's like, okay, well, this is a pretty interesting way of training. And he hears that it's going to be a 2 versus 2 like simulation. And he actually gets teamed up with a girl by the name of Ochaku Uraka, and he's going to be going heads up with Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida. Now, this training, this hero training, is a pretty simple one, and it's not too complex or anything too crazy. It's actually pretty basic in all reality. There's a bomb that is placed on a random floor. The villain's job is to protect that bomb for a certain amount of time. And also on top of that, if they capture the heroes, well, let's just say it is over. Now, for the heroes, they have to finish the job by touching the bomb, and aka defusing said bomb. Capturing the villains would count as basically the villains being subdued, so if they are captured, they are no longer to be a threat to the heroes. Now, the Izuku Midoriya starts on the hero side with Ochaku Uraka, and the villain side is Tenya Ida and Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo obviously wants his revenge on Izuku, but Izuku knows and understands that Bakugo can't really touch him. Like, it's not fair. So if he really wants to fight Izuku, and he really wants to fight Deku, then normally, let's just say, it's not going to be a fair fight. But this version of Izuku is completely thinking about every possibility, and also thinking what's the best way and where the bomb is possibly placed, and what's the best way to more or less find their way to that bomb. So he speaks to Ochako, giving her a plan utilizing her gravity quirk and floating to the exact room that he basically has planted in his brain. Thinking about it, where it is, where it's located, the bomb, and he deduces that the specific floor and room it's currently on, and what window they must go through. So he begins to levitate with Ochako, and it seems as if he can feel some levitation within his own body, as if maybe he's able to fly as well. But he doesn't really think too much about it, utilizing her quirk, at least to their own abilities, and they both basically grab onto each other as they fly up or levitate up, and he guides them using just, air pressure by pushing them a certain direction, by more or less slapping or kind of waving the air in a specific direction. And as he does this, they go to the specific window. He grabs onto the side and tells her that she could deactivate her quirk, and he buzzed through the window with her on his back, and immediately they touched the bomb, and it would be over in a matter of seconds. Bakugo would have went running down to try to fight Izuku, but Izuku Midoriya isn't even there. The fight with his quote-unquote rival is out of reach and continues to be out of reach more and more and more. It seems as if Bakugo really wants to fight Izuku, but it's just not going to be, or he's not going to be given the chance, and not even close. At the end of this training session, Izuku Midoriya will be praised by everyone. I mean, he absolutely did insanely good work, and he shows off what he's truly capable of, just at a scale of just doing the hero's job, not just outwardly fighting or destroying robots. When both Ochako and him get to All Might once again, All Might praises them and basically says like their entire operation, their entire breakdown and all of that did just wonders, and that they did an amazing job overall, in which they're really happy to hear. And Bakugo and Tenya, well, let's just say they didn't do very good of a job, or at least didn't do as good of a job as they really should have. Now, they would hang out and watch everybody go through their own hero versus villain type of ordeal, and everybody would kind of have their successes and have their detriments and have their losses and so on. And eventually it is all said and done and all wrapped up, and they go through the normal day of just, well, you know, your normal school day. And this would eventually lead them to actually dealing with the, well, USJ. Now, the USJ is a rescue facility, and it's basically giving the students an opportunity to learn more into hero work. It's not just fighting, it's not just being strong, it's not just doing this or doing that, and that's something that they're all gonna have to understand. And it's a big idea that a lot of them need to learn, so it's a perfect time for them to learn it, and that's through the USJ, or the rescue facility. Now, they would all be talking on the bus, heading over to the USJ, talking about whose quirk is the strongest, who believes, and who thinks who is the strongest, and so on. And it's pretty obvious. Most people believe that it's not really close, that Deku is the strongest here, and that it's by quite a bit of a large margin. And some people do try to argue that Todoroki might actually be as strong or stronger with his both ice and fire like quirk or something like that. But we all know that that's not necessarily true, that Izuku definitely is levels above everybody that is currently there at this moment. Now, this conversation would be cut short by Aizawa telling them to all be quiet as they head into the USJ, or the rescue facility. Now, immediately being introduced to Pro Hero 13, many of them actually really like Pro Hero 13, and they have a bit of a fangirl of some sort of session. And after some time speaking and actually talking about what the USJ really is, they head inside and they begin talking about what's going to happen and what they're going to do. Now, the conversation is a pretty basic one and a pretty simple one. This conversation just is a pretty basic explanation of what's going to happen, what they have to do, what needs to go down, and more or less like what they're gonna get into in terms of just flat out just, you know, training in terms of the USJ. Because the training in terms of the USJ is not necessarily basic. There's a lot of things that they could possibly do in terms of the entirety of the scope of rescuing as many people as possible. At the end of the day, there are different environments, there are different situations, there are different everything you could possibly imagine that would basically slot into the ideal or the ideals of rescuing somebody. Now, after this conversation is basically had, they're cut short just a little bit, and the reason for that is because portals begin to open and villains begin to pour into the USJ. This would shock everybody. Everybody would wonder how the hell they got in and how is this even happening. But as the villains and more would come out, Izuku would basically look to jump into action. But of course, Aizawa would tell him not to. But immediately Izuku would tell Aizawa that he could help, that he could stop all these villains in a matter of seconds, and which Aizawa says that he can't just kill them though. But Izuku shakes his head and says that he has control, like he can make sure that these villains don't just, fall over and die. He can make sure that, well, they're just subdued. In which Aizawa looks at him and then nods his head as Aizawa would jump into action fighting the villains, and immediately would see these beams come flying across, avoiding him but actually going to every last villain there. And it seems as if all the large group of villains, or the giant group of villains that is currently in front of them, begin to all get subdued. One after another would get struck with the beam, and it's as if it's a massive shock to them, and it's a massive like stun gun. They immediately get shocked by this beam and fall to the ground. Some of them knocked out completely cold, some of them actually kind of injured, but for the most part they are knocked out and put aside, and Izuku literally just kind of takes away every villain, or most villains, that were currently there. But that's all the small fry like villains. Izuku would go to try to shoot a beam toward Shigaraki, but a portal would open up, forcing the beams back toward Izuku. Izuku is able to stop the beams, being that he has full control over them at this point, and he's able to stop them from actually doing that. He now realizes the powers of which are different people, knowing that this other guy that's this smoky-like figure, being that of Kurogiri, is a portal-like maker, and it seems like he's able to create portals and redirect things at his will, so he needs to be careful about that, and that's exactly what he's going to do, be careful about that specifically. But that's not his issues. He begins to actually travel around the area pretty quickly, knocking out the rest of the villains that are kind of led astray, and the only three that are left are Kurogiri, a Nomu, and, well, Shigaraki. Immediately, Aizawa would see the effect that the Nomu could have right here and right now, because the Nomu would begin to try and hurt Aizawa, but luckily enough, Izuku comes right into the fray and stops the Nomu, blocking the punch and sending the Nomu backwards extremely quickly. Now, Aizawa would realize very quickly that he needs the help of Izuku, and Izuku would tell him that he'll handle the big guy, that he needs to worry about those two right there and make sure that they cannot escape. In which Aizawa is shocked to hear this. It seems like the guy has basically everything planned out, and Izuku thinks in his head that if they allow those two to escape, there's probably more on the other side of this all that is basically being puppeted by someone even greater than them. Izuku and the Nomu begin their ultimate clash, and it seems like this is the first time Izuku can go all out. The Nomu being able to tank some of the blows that Izuku hits him with, and Izuku shoots his Omega Beams, not on stun, actually looking to hurt the Nomu pretty bad. As it clashes with the Nomu's skin, it seems to actually do massive substantial damage, but it seems like the overridden durability, the absorption, and so much more allow the Nomu to tank it to a certain degree, and he continues to put the onslaught on the Nomu, and he continues to put the Nomu on the back foot, so much so that when Shigaraki commands the Nomu, it seems like the Nomu can't just ignore Izuku. He has to continue fighting, and he continue fighting Izuku more and more and more, and it seems like he's fighting for his life at this point. Izuku continues the onslaught as Aizawa actually begins to beat on Shigaraki and begins to avoid Kurogiri as much as he possibly can. And it seems like it's going heavily in their favor, especially when Bakugo comes out of nowhere, putting an explosion on Kurogiri's chest, realizing the weakness that Kurogiri has, and slamming him to the ground. Izuku would shoot an Omega Beam toward Kurogiri, actually hitting the chest again, penetrating through slightly, and actually knocking him out using a stun. Immediately, Bakugo would get mad about this, but Izuku says that he had to take the opening that Bakugo gave him to make sure that that thing stays down. Stop complaining, this is life or death, this is no game anymore. he begins to continue his clash with the Nomu, grabbing the Nomu by the arm and flipping him over his shoulder. He begins to beat on the Nomu while he keeps it on the ground, but he realizes the Nomu is still regenerating and still trying to fight his way up. But then out of nowhere, when the Nomu would get up, he would get smashed in the face by a massive punch. A punch coming from out of nowhere is what it seems like, and it would actually be the one and only All Might. All Might would punch the Nomu, punching him extremely hard into the ground as he tells Izuku to follow up as quick as possible, shooting his Omega Beams once again as All Might lands a flurry of punches while the Nomu is stuck on the ground and begins to absolutely beat on the Nomu as much as possible, eventually subduing the Nomu completely, and Shigaraki seems like he's completely lost, like he's completely in a massively bad situation because, Kurogiri is down for the count, the Nomu is completely subdued, and, it's just him. How did everything go wrong so quickly? How did everything go wrong as fast as it did? And immediately, he feels the ground from underneath him sweep him like a rug as he falls within a different portal, and so does Kurogiri and also the Nomu, falling through those portals, and they're gone almost instantly, and everything seems deathly silent. But as everything would get deathly silent, Izuku could feel a presence, but it's not what you think it is. He feels a sense of nervousness, but then a sense of, fear, relief, nervousness, but also dread. But everybody is safe. Everybody is fine. Everybody is... His eyes dart over straight to one person. One person that is staring back at Izuku like he is a monster. Everybody else stands there excited, happy that they're safe. But this person, this one person stares at Izuku like he thwarted something that he knew about, that now he fears even more, that now he's even more terrified. And this person is Aoyama. Izuku wonders, what is wrong with him? Why? Why does he feel this way? And why can he sense this odd feeling from him when they just, survived? When they just were saved by the heroes, and when Izuku was able to take down ferocious villains that could have potentially hurt them all. Why is he acting in that way? Why is he looking in this direction as if he didn't want this to happen in the way it happened? Why does he feel like that? Aoyama would be shocked that Izuku is basically staring back at him, and he would look away and, immediately would kind of go off to everyone else, would head off to where everyone else is, and that's basically it. Izuku would have his curiosities though. He would be wondering, what exactly was wrong with him? What just happened in his own mind? And he wonders, does Aoyama know things that others don't? Does Aoyama know something that, that everyone else doesn't? Why was he feeling those emotions? Izuku holds that close to his chest as if he doesn't want to unveil his cards all at once, but he joins the class and says that he's just happy everyone is safe and everyone is good. And there's a conversation to be had, but just not for now. Not right now. This would lead them to, actually talking about this a little bit later, and Izuku has a conversation with Aizawa. They would talk about this. Aizawa and him, and also even All Might, would talk about what occurred, and that Izuku really shouldn't have intervened because it's very dangerous for a student to do so. But obviously All Might would say that this kid is not your ordinary student. He's very, very much above that. I mean, he can obviously show capabilities that nobody else can show, and it's obvious that his capabilities are beyond basically anything that anybody has really seen in a pretty damn long time. And this is agreed upon, of course, but he still says that he needs to be careful and not basically get overly zealous. and he doesn't want him to get hurt. But Izuku would bring up something. He would bring up the idea of there being a traitor within UA, in which everybody would, or the two there, both Aizawa and All Might, would be pretty shocked to hear this and ask him, how does he know about that? How does he know about a possible traitor within UA? In which Izuku says that, well, I mean, he didn't know for sure, but now that they confirm it, he feels like there's an odd suspicion that it's truly one of the students. In which they would ask Izuku, who do he think it is? And he would bring up one name, and that being Aoyama. He would say that he was able to analyze, more or less in a brief moment, the emotions that Aoyama was having. And he's never been able to do this before, but he was able to deduce it just through, I guess, his mass intellect. And he could feel that Aoyama had a sense of nervousness to him, but it was also a sense of fear. But it should have been more heavily sided with a sense of relief, in which they would be shocked to hear this. I mean, how is he able to tell these weird emotions? But Izuku says that it's not that he can tell the emotions, but it's that his mind works differently. And a lot of humans, and all of us humans really, have a way of portraying emotions greater than they really think. In which Izuku says that he actually has studied this for a while. I mean, you get bored when you're already done with practically all your studies for the entirety of your life, so you begin to start looking at things even deeper, looking at the human emotions. You look at things that not many people would even notice, but he does notice them, and he notices them very quickly. And it seems as if these things are kind of connected to Aoyama, in which he explains it further. But they say that they can't really do anything at this moment. They can't go and question him and something like that. They can't alarm him to a large degree. So they're going to keep this in the back pocket and inform everybody as much as possible to keep an eye out for him and keep an eye out for anything massively suspicious. Izuku would nod and would agree, as they would have this conversation end, and he would head back to class and head back to the rest of his classes. But it seems like Izuku might be spot on and straight down on the head about the idea of someone being a traitor and it actually being one of the students. But for now, we'll have to see what happens next time on part 3 of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Darkseid. Izuku Midoriya has just done an amazing thing. He's just revealed so much to the heroes, to UA, and so much more. It seems as if since this kid has arrived, he's done more and more and more as they continue on this journey throughout UA High School and throughout this whole hero journey. Now, he can't really get involved too heavily with the whole research of Aoyama and to kind of like interrogate and kind of look into like if he's truly a traitor of some sorts. But for now, he continues on with doing his normal UA hero type of school thing, and that would include the UA Sports Festival. The UA Sports Festival will be heading up very, very soon, and they would be basically taking on as much as possible. But in all reality, this isn't really a challenge for someone like Deku and someone like Izuku Midoriya. Frankly, there's a lot of things in his own mind that he feels he could be doing better, and a lot of things in his own mind that he felt like he could be spending his time on and it would be yielding greater results. But of course, Aizawa is very insistent on him showing what he's capable of, especially because this is going to allow him to basically get into any internship, any future work study, and all of the above very, very soon as well. And he tells him this is a very serious thing, so Izuku takes it very seriously as well on the act of Aizawa. Now, he would be the person to actually give a speech, and he would be telling everybody that, well, he's going to win, and that statistically, there is no other runner-up. There's no close person, it's only him. And really, that's the truth behind it, because he just scales way better than everyone else. He is faster, he is stronger, he is smarter, and so on and so forth. And it seems like everyone hears this and they're not too happy about it. Frankly, they're not happy about the idea that Izuku is bolstering himself up in front of everybody and showing exactly that he's arrogant and that he's so much better. But Izuku's not necessarily arrogant, he just knows he's better than everyone else. So is a fact really being arrogant? I'm not so sure. Now, the very first thing they do is the obstacle course race, and let's just say that arrogance, or that confidence you could even say, is proven immediately, because, well, it seems as if Izuku Midoriya shows exactly why he's so much better than everyone else when he begins to just dash forward and fly past every single obstacle you could possibly think of, and, well, he would beat everybody by a long shot. And when I mean a long shot, I mean a long shot. Everybody would mildly struggle on, this obstacle or maybe this miscellaneous obstacle, but no, Izuku Midoriya, oh my goodness, he is gone in a matter of seconds too. He just obliterates through the robots, dives over this giant crevice or this giant place that is sunken in, and all these obstacles are nothing for him. They're actually very simple. I mean, he's kind of not impressed that UA did something so basic. At the end of the day, I mean, what is this? I mean, this is so simple, this is so basic, I mean, this is nothing. And he truly believes that. And he just bolts past everything with absolute ease, and he has to wait actually a little bit for everybody to arrive. Now, this would lead him to getting a bit of you could call it a disadvantage, but it's not really a disadvantage to a large extent. And what I mean by that is he'd actually be given a 10 million point band. And this band would, of course, go around his head, and, of course, would be all involving the whole point system in the next event known as the Cavalry Battle. But in all honesty, everybody who's on Izuku's team would get through to the next round. And it seems like everybody knows that, because a lot of people are trying to join him. And frankly, Izuku doesn't really care who joins him. He doesn't really mind. Honestly, he'd rather just do it on his own. I mean, he can fly, he can do this, he can do that. I mean, there's no way they're going to lose, and there's just no chance he's going to somehow lose with extra people on his team as well. So he decides to, pick up some miscellaneous people, being that of Uraraka, Tokiyami, Meihatsume, and they make a bit of a team. And everyone is kind of sad because they weren't able to actually be on Izuku's team. But Izuku literally just has his team stand still, and anytime anyone gets close, he would shoot his Omega Beams and kind of put it on quote-unquote stun, but even lower than stun, so that he can kind of push them away, you could say. And frankly, there's just this aura around Izuku that makes it feel as if no one could even touch him, that it's not even close. Nobody even tries after a certain amount of time to even go near Izuku, and frankly, that's probably the best choice and the best course of action. Because, frankly enough, Izuku is leaps and bounds above everybody that is going to try and get his band away from his head, so it's best to not stick around and not deal with Izuku head on. So most people try to, get their bands elsewhere and stuff like that, and Izuku's team, being that of Meihatsume, Tokiyami, and also Ochaku Uraraka, are passed on to the next round very easily. And the next round is a 1 versus 1 round, and let's just say this is not going to be very good for whoever goes head to head with Izuku in the very first round. It's not going to be fair, and Izuku actually faces off with someone by the name of Hitoshi Shinso. Shinso is an interesting one. He hasn't actually heard of him, and it seems like he's part of general studies. I mean, he's not 100% sure why Shinso even got this far, but then he begins to think, how did Shinso truly get this far? He begins to think about all the stuff that Shinso did, how it all connected, and so on and so forth, and eventually he would deduce his quirk. And once he was able to deduce that quirk, let's just say, it wasn't a fair fight. Izuku just wouldn't respond to him at all, would approach him extremely quickly and just push him off the stage. And just like that, Shinso would be gone and Izuku would be on to the very next round, in which he would await his next challenge, and he would actually be confronted by somebody, and actually be confronted by one of the most major heroes in the entirety of Japan and maybe in the entirety of the world, that being Endeavor. Endeavor would approach him and say that he wants to make a deal with the kid. He wants him to actually force his son, obviously Todoroki, Shoto Todoroki, to utilize his fire side, and that if he does this, that he'll be basically gifted a spot on Endeavor's agency when he's on the up and coming, and when he needs an internship and also a work study and stuff like that. Izuku looks at him and tells him that by just looking at him, he can tell that he's a absolute shit father. And on top of that, he's obviously horrible at parenting and probably has abused his son and probably all of his entire family his entire life. Endeavor would immediately retaliate and say, who does the kid think he's talking to? And Izuku's eyes would glow a bright red and say that he's obviously talking to the oaf that is in front of him. Now, he's better watch what he says very, very, very strictly, or else. And immediately Endeavor would say that those threats are empty and that he wouldn't even be able to touch him, but Izuku says that that's so far from the truth that he doesn't even understand. He's compared their powers, he's compared their strengths, and let's just say that if Izuku was maybe 3-4 years older, that he would be the number 2 hero standing next to All Might, fighting crime, not battling against him or hiding under his shadow. Izuku would nudge Endeavor to the side and would walk past him, as Endeavor would be so pissed to the point that he would fill the corridor with fire, and it would begin to spread toward Izuku, and Endeavor would purposely try to hit Izuku with fire, but it seems like with one punch, the fire would clear out and Endeavor would be slightly pushed more down the corridor, and he would be in shock. How did that kid just do that? He's just a kid. There's no way. In which Izuku would just walk away and would go and head out to the stage as he's going to face down with Shoto Todoroki. Now, this fight, let's just say, is not necessarily an eventful one. Izuku would easily be able to defeat Todoroki, but for now, he wants to play around a little bit. He begins to try and see what his limitations are, what he can do, what he's capable of, and then eventually he realizes that Todoroki is slowing down more and more and more. And he tells Todoroki, well, if he uses fire side, wouldn't that make him more stabilized? Isn't like that the whole point of having that quirk? In which Todoroki would shut down the idea of him even utilizing that horrible quirk, like that is not his quirk. In which Izuku would shrug and say that he is utilizing his quirk. I mean, the ice is his quirk, the fire is his quirk. I mean, he's not saying he has to utilize them, but he's just saying that it is definitely his quirk. Izuku would go on to kind of break down what he truly believes about Todoroki's quirk and what he's truly going to be capable of, and says that he'd be so much better than his father, quicker than you could possibly imagine, if he just utilized both of them. Both the fire, both the ice. But hey, do what you want, do as you wish. And Izuku tells him that it really doesn't matter to him, because it all ends the same exact way, and that's with a victory for Izuku Midoriya. His eyes begin to glow as he shoots Omega Beams toward Todoroki, and the Todoroki tries to stop them and block them with his ice, but soon he would realize that it keeps burning and burrowing through the entirety of the ice, and then immediately he tries to regulate himself with his fire, subconsciously trying to spew more ice to block it, and he even shoots fire as well, just a little bit, trying to block the Omega Beams from reaching him. But soon he would realize that even though he utilized his fire for a split second, that it would never have been enough to beat Izuku. and it launches him off the stage, and Todoroki is the loser. Izuku would look into the stands and would realize that this really is no challenge, that every single person here is so far from his level. He needs to already level up and go to the next stage and go to the next basically the next fight, the next time, and also just accelerate his hero career. That's what he wants to do, but obviously it's never that simple, and there's always restraints on people like him, on people that are so much better but still need to go step by step like every single other person. Now, this would lead Izuku to going on to the next round, where he would face off with Tenya Ida, which wouldn't even be a challenge and wouldn't even be close. The fight with Tenya Ida would be a very simple one, but he would recognize something. He would see that Ida is actually going through something, and he's talking to somebody on the phone, and he overhears the words that were being said, something about the hero killer and something about Tenya Ida's brother. So he'll have to keep that in mind as he continues on with basically dealing with whatever hero work, and also as he finishes the UA Sports Festival. Now, with that said, the finale is here. The end all be all, the end of the UA Sports Festival is upon us, because that is Izuku Midoriya versus Katsuki Bakugo. Izuku Midoriya stands on one side, Bakugo on the other, and Izuku tells him that he finally has his chance to try and show if he's better than Izuku or better than himself. He tells Bakugo, "Are you ready? Are you ready to show the world that you are somehow better than me?" And he mocks Bakugo just a little bit, telling him that he was so prideful over his quirk. Everybody was so prideful over his quirk. The difference is, well, they all really liked him because they knew he was going places. Everybody else, when they started seeing my powers, Izuku's powers, when they started seeing the powers of Izuku, they weren't prideful of him. They weren't thinking he was going places. There's a difference. They feared him. They were terrified because they never met somebody that didn't show crazy promise at such a young age, or promise that could be seen in a sparkling explosion, and they didn't know what would have happened if he continued, or if Izuku continued to grow up and get stronger and stronger, what could happen at all. So they liked him out of fear, out of conformity, out of making sure that they were on the nice side of Izuku. But Bakugo, on the other hand, yeah, they might have been scared a little bit of the Pomeranian, but they didn't fear him. Not even close. Izuku tells Bakugo that they are in a totally different category. And that himself, he's in a category above it all. And it's really that simple. In which Bakugo does not take this very lightly and comes charging in with explosions and furies of them, but Izuku would be easily able to calculate what Bakugo is doing, break down what Bakugo is doing, and easily eliminate him in a matter of seconds. Everybody cheers and everybody is shocked. The fact that this cocky, this prideful, this proud little kid, or well, teenager, was able to live up to the word that he said at the very beginning. Wow, that is something amazing. You don't really see that many people nowadays that aren't just all bark, but they are bite as well. Now, Izuku is celebrated and everybody cheers him on, and of course he gets first place, but this isn't over. This isn't the end of it all. This is where he would get piles and piles and piles and piles of internship offers, and frankly, there would be so many that he didn't even know who to choose. I mean, he would think about it a lot. I mean, what about this hero? What about this hero? What about this? He would think about as many as possible, but he would be kind of debating between a couple that he's actually been seeing, but the one he actually thinks about doing the most, and maybe it's out of pride, maybe it's out of just wanting to kind of deal with the whole backlash behind that and maybe even torment him a little more, that's Endeavor. He's surprised. Endeavor actually lived up to his word. Izuku did make Todoroki utilize his fire side, even if it was for a brief moment, but he didn't really expect him to double down on it, especially after what happened before he went on stage. Kind of wild that he ended up doing that. But hey, he respects someone that has, you know, the guts to live up to his word, but doesn't respect somebody that is also abusive. But that's beyond the point, at least right now, because Izuku will now have time to torment Endeavor just a little bit more. Now, this would lead them to actually being intertwined in their internships, and that includes him and Todoroki. So when they would get all set up and everybody would get set up to go to their internships, they would head off to actually deal with them, him and Todoroki. Todoroki would make it clear that they are not friends, in which Izuku agrees, saying they are definitely not friends, and trust me, he understands that. There's no worries there. And he would head off to work with Endeavor. Now, initially, Endeavor would make it so that it's kind of like Izuku is a training dummy for Todoroki, but of course, there would be some pushback by Izuku, some that would lead them to actually working and heading off to, well, Hosu City to do some patrolling in a city that is supposed to be pretty climactic, at least you could say. Now, they wouldn't expect all of the things that are going to happen, but, well, let's just say they definitely do. Because when they arrive, it's pretty chaotic. And so chaotic to the point where it seems as if there are Nomus running around, there are villains running around, there's so much chaos running around and going around, and it's pretty wild to even think about, but it seems as if it's going to be handled relatively quickly. Izuku uses his Omega Beams to basically knock out or disintegrate Nomu after Nomu, and on top of that, any villains, stray villains that are around would be stunned in a matter of seconds. These Omega Beams are pretty damn overpowered for him, and Endeavor just watches in awe as Izuku does this and then makes the beams just dissipate and disappear. Nobody even says a word, they don't even know where they came from, it happens so quickly. But Izuku just doesn't even reference it, as the city would already calm down in a matter of seconds, so much so that they would begin to hear ruckus nearby in a different alleyway. And that ruckus is actually from the hero killer, Stain. And it's ironic because this is someone Izuku was actually curious about just a little bit, because he heard something with Tenya Ida and also his family about this person specifically. Now, when they arrive, it seems like Endeavor insists on handling this on his own, and, well, there's a reason why Endeavor is the number 2 hero in terms of power, but the hero killer is pretty slippery and tricky, so he does have a little bit of struggle against the hero killer, but the hero killer seems to fall relatively simply to Endeavor, especially when Izuku kind of like pokes his head in and helps out just a little bit, tagging the hero killer with an Omega Beam to stun part of his leg and give Endeavor an opening. Now, he kind of just allows Endeavor to take the credit so he doesn't just, you know, get in trouble for anything he did, but there's something off about this whole scenario. Why did this happen? Why is this happening? Is there an outer kind of more elaborate plan going on as they speak? He begins to think about this and listen closely to try to listen to anything going on, but it's not like he can hear that far out. I mean, he thinks to himself, this might be the work of Shigaraki maybe, or someone of that manner, maybe, just maybe, but for now they just have no clue, and for now they just will continue to have very, very limited knowledge of that occurrence. Now, this would lead them to being forced back to UA because, you know, when horrible things happen, when a student almost dies and, you know, all this crazy stuff occurs, well, you're kind of forced into a situation where you got to send the kids back and you can't really allow them to do their own things just for safety reasons. Now, this would put them in a scenario where they do have a little bit more time, of course, to prepare for their final exams, in which Izuku, in terms of the written, doesn't even have to touch a book. I mean, we are talking about Izuku being extremely intelligent, knowing practically everything you could possibly imagine, and he absolutely is a brilliant mind. So the written portion is a very simple one. Now, when you get to the very next portion, which would be the practical, is a totally different scenario, because Izuku begins to wait to hear who his opponent is, and he continues to wait until nobody is chosen. I mean, what is this? Well, why is nobody chosen for his his person to go against? In which Aizawa says that they actually got a special thing for him, and they called in a favor that, well, he'll probably enjoy very much. And it's going to be something similar to this, something where he could either choose to escape or try to incapacitate 3 people or 3 heroes. But then Izuku would cut off Aizawa and ask if he means 3. I mean, why did he just say 3? In which Aizawa would laugh a little bit and say, "Oh, my fault. Of course. And would say, "Yes, because you'll be taking on 3 heroes, or, well, students actually, but future heroes known as the Big 3. And the Big 3 would come crashing down, and they would be introduced as Mirio, Tamaki, and also Nejire. These 3 are the 3 highest level students and also the most powerful students in UA High School. They are 3rd years and have accelerated beyond anybody's possible imagination, and even Mirio arguably will be a top 10 hero once he steps foot into the hero world. So can Izuku Midoriya, the reincarnation of Darkseid, take on these 3 heroes evenly in the final exam? Well, you're gonna have to find out in the 4th part of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Darkseid. Izuku Midoriya is now going to take on the Big 3 in his final exam. But the real question is, can they really stack up to him? Yes, I said it. Can they really stack up to Izuku Midoriya? Because he's shown on multiple occasions that his level of skill, power, intelligence is on a totally different level, and he shows that very quickly in the fight against the Big 3. And the reason why he's able to show how much skill he's capable of is because he understands and knows exactly what these quirks that they are using are and how they exactly work. The only hard one really is Mirio. Mirio's quirk is a difficult one to deal with, and maybe that's an understatement, but Izuku has been thinking about this for a while and has actually seen what the strongest or 3 strongest people in UA, quote unquote, truly are capable of. And frankly, Nejire and Tamaki are kind of the ones that are behind just a little bit, and they might just underestimate him a smidge to the point where he might get an opening or get a chance where he can easily defeat them. Now, he does put a focal point on both Nejire and Tamaki at the very beginning of this fight. At the end of the day, he knows who's going to be the strongest and the more durable out of the bunch, so he focuses on those 2 first. Now, he can easily shoot Omega Beams at them, but he knows that has been seen quite a bit throughout this time, so they might obviously be able to scout it out and maybe avoid it to a certain extent. But he uses the Omega Beams as a distraction and is able to close the distance a mass majority of the time, and is able to land a clean blow to Nejire and Tamaki, slamming them both on the ground. This right here is a showing of how strong Izuku truly is, because when he looks down to see if they're, well, out of commission or if they're getting back up or what's going on, he realizes something that would shock him entirely, and it's that they're already out of commission. Both Nejire and Tamaki are on the ground out cold in a matter of seconds. Everybody who's currently watching his test is in complete and utter shock. Izuku stands in front of Mirio, and he could tell something is different about him, very different, as if the quirk that he once studied and once knew isn't the same as it once was. It seems like there's another quirk within him that is giving him more strength, more speed, and more just endurance in general, and it seems as if all of these things continue to surround Mirio. And as Izuku stands there face to face with Mirio, and as Mirio charges forward at him and then disappears within the ground, it's as if Izuku can then now see something that he's never seen before. It's as if he sees just this outward power that Mirio is actually giving off to a certain extent. He continues to watch, continues to look at this, and he realizes, well, he must have the power of someone that he knows, the power, well, of All Might. At least that's what it looks like. And when Mirio appears out of the ground, halfway out of the ground, he stops, completely stuck in the ground and completely just stuck there, in which Mirio is confused, saying that he can't move, in which Izuku says, yeah, he knows, because that's one of his powers, one of his strengths, one of his abilities. And of course, Mirio is completely shocked by this. He doesn't understand. How was he able to do that? He's seen his powers. I mean, yes, he has an abundance of them, but there's no way he has more. And Izuku just smiles and says, he has so much more that no one has even seen yet. This right here is just one of them. This telekinesis is just one of them. And frankly, this is one of the more basic ones you could possibly imagine. I mean, it gets even crazier, it gets even further. And it's something that he began to learn more and more, and something that he's now realizing. And he begins to focus extremely hard on Mirio's like thought process and his mind, and he begins to tell Mirio that he now realizes that his intelligence expands so much further beyond just a thought process, beyond just a step-by-step thinking above everyone else, thinking past everyone else. No. It's so much more than that now, so much more. And Izuku hones in on the mind of Mirio, and immediately Mirio is shocked to feel something as if it's protruding into his own mind, but it stops, as if this presence isn't going to hurt him, but it can hear his thoughts, his fear, his concern, and his, well, questioning of what kind of absolute monster is standing in front of him. Izuku holds him with his telekinesis, flying off, as he actually drags Mirio with him as he escapes through the exit, going to quote-unquote get help from a hero. He lets Mirio out of his telekinesis and tells him that he is no monster. And he promises that he is far from that, and he promises to be just like him, to protect, to help, and to make sure that he is the hero that everyone seeks out for others to be. He promises to be that next All Might, in which Mirio is completely shocked. How did he hear him? How did he know his thoughts? In which Izuku would walk away, and everybody would be completely shocked at the pure dominance that Izuku was able to exhibit. And it was obvious that his level, his skill, and his just outside of all his powers, he was just at a different level in the stratosphere compared to these three, in which Aizawa just smirks, thinking that they truly have a prodigy level like hero ready to go. It's as if this kid, he's prepared to be that hero right now. If you put him out there with other heroes, he would stand out to be the number one. He would be the greatest, and he would show everyone what he's capable of. But for now, he's still a student, so he has to go through the normal qualms of being a student, classes, and so on. But it seems like his journey to being a hero, though, will be a little bit quicker. And it seems like his journey to being the person and the hero that he basically sought after, well, it's going to be a lot quicker than you could possibly imagine, because, well, it seems as if Izuku's smarter, faster, better than every single other person, and it seems like his hero journey will be massively accelerated. And when he arrives back at Aizawa to tell him or to talk to him, it seems like Aizawa is just expecting him to gloat about what he did, but Izuku tells him that he knows for a certainty. He knows something that they don't, and they'll talk soon. In which Aizawa is shocked by this, but they remember something that they thought about a long time ago, something that was put on the back burner because the proof wasn't available, or the idea wasn't concrete. But now Izuku is looking into the mind of somebody, looking very, very closely from the outside in, and he hears something. An attack. He hears more. All for one, Shigaraki, the League of Villains, and the fear of Izuku Midoriya, possibly the true dark side of the hero world. It's crazy. In the mind of Aoyama, things are racing. In the mind of Aoyama, things are being said over and over again. Grief, sadness, everything all combined in one. But the thought process is, when they go on this trip, when they go to basically this forest training camp, the idea is to have people invade, have people siege there specifically, and, well, get some work done, you could say. Now, Aoyama doesn't know very, very specific details, but still, that's what the plan is. But it seems as if they're scared of Izuku, that they fear him, that him going there would be a scary, scary thing. And soon after, that will be relayed to Aizawa. Izuku explains everything that he was able to telepathically learn, and everything that basically could be set up and could be ready to go, in which everyone begins to speak about this, and they begin to wonder, maybe the trap was for All Might, maybe the whole idea in general is still to kill All Might, because I mean, All Might's expected to be there, but maybe there's more to it, more than they could possibly imagine. Now, they begin to think that maybe it is for the best that Izuku stays back, but maybe not as far back as you think. Now, Izuku is told that he's going to be separated from everybody. He's not going to have any job on this trip. He's going to be kind of in disguise in a way. He's going to be told that, or they're going to tell everybody that Izuku got a great opportunity somewhere else, and that he's not going to be involved at all, but he's actually going to be involved. On the hill nearby, there is housing and a small area that he can stay in, and he'll even be able to get some other training in with other heroes that are going to occupy him as well there. And he's going to wait, and he has full permission to basically help out if the villains do siege, but to keep him away from the site is their main goal, because that will tell them a lot about what's happening. Not only will it will tell them that Izuku is powerful, but it will also tell them that, well, they fear this student. They fear the powers and capabilities of Izuku Midoriya, and soon this plan would go into fruition, because Izuku would be hanging out at a house nearby on a mountain, and then he would begin to hear the screams of people down where they're currently training, and what's happening in the training session. And when he would look out, he would see the forest just on fire. It seems like things are chaotic and things are happening insanely quick, in which he looks at the other two heroes that are currently occupying him, and they nod their heads, as if giving a signal for Izuku to head over. It's as if it's a monster. It's as if it's a glowing red-eyed monster flying over above them, and Izuku floats above the entire forest training camp. Immediately, everybody begins to say, "Well, what is that? Look up, look." And even the students of Class 1A don't recognize him, just not initially, until they realize, wait, that's Izuku. Izuku's eyes glow a deeper red as Omega Beams begin to spew out as they begin to track the villains and Nomus through the forest. knocking one by one by one by one by one out. And as it continues to do it, and as they continue to knock villain after villain out, these villains are being captured. But there's one thing that's about to happen that is going to shock Izuku, because his Omega Beams may have knocked out every villain that was there, but when a portal opens up, grabbing Bakugo and dragging him away, his Omega Beams were not able to be there in time, because he didn't know that would occur in a split of a second. It's as if they grab him, drag him away, thinking that they can maybe turn Bakugo to another side. But let's just say the villains have no idea that they are completely wrong. Because Izuku, he may not enjoy Bakugo. He may not be the best of friends with him, but they still are childhood friends. And he remembers those times where they were best of friends. And he's going to make sure that he is safe, and that to make sure that he is fine. And he's going to make sure that the villains know to never mess with UA again. Izuku Midoriya would join back up with the heroes and immediately would begin speaking about a plan, and would say that he can deduce very quickly on where these people are. But quickly after he says all these things, someone would approach, being that of Momo Yaoyorozu, saying that, well, it seems like one Nomu actually did get away, and she was able to stick him with a tracker. In which Izuku says that the tracker is a good start, and if he can find out where that Nomu is, he should be able to deduce the specific location of where Bakugo is currently being held. In which, when a large meeting happens with a ton of heroes, they would question why the little kid, or the child, being that of Izuku Midoriya, is in there with them, but Aizawa says to shut up and listen very closely. Izuku explains the whole thing, explaining everything that he's deduced, and explaining the location of where Bakugo is currently, and says that they're going to need his help, and in which they say they won't need his help because they have All Might, they have Endeavor, and so on. In which Izuku says that still won't be enough. Not enough to stop this here and now. Not enough to stop the villains, known as the League of Villains, from enacting even further plans that they have basically in order. He tells them all of what their future plans are, the strength that they are trying to find, the power that they are trying to find. They can stop this here and now, but they have to let him do what he needs to do. In which all of them say that he is no hero, not yet. He is a student, but Aizawa vouches for him and says that he is far beyond a student. He is far beyond anything anyone could possibly imagine, and this is something that he should be allowed to do. In which that one vouch may go a good far way, but it seems like a lot of them still reject the idea. But Izuku, well, he tells them that they can accept it, they cannot accept it, but it's not like any of them could stop him. And maybe he truly is going to be the dark side of this hero world, at least as a hero himself, because guess what? He's not going to play by their rules if they're going to more or less play with the life of another student. In which all of them are shocked to hear this, but Izuku stands up, gives the location, and tells them that he'll be seeing them there, and they don't have a choice in this matter. He flies off as they prepare, basically prepare the infiltration of trying to stop the League of Villains. And this infiltration would be far easier to a certain extent, but Izuku would want to be there to make sure that he can not only stop the League of Villains that are currently there, but also, make sure everyone is safe, and imprison every last partner of the League of Villains if absolutely possible. And that's exactly what he's going to do. He awaits, the villains to show face, and soon when they try to invade and take Bakugo, a large attack would then pursue. And then a fight with All For One and All Might would begin as well. This fight would shock everybody and would shock everyone to their core, believing that maybe All For One would have been dead by now, but he is not dead. He is far from it. All For One is now facing down with All Might, but it seems like he won't be alone in this fight, and the other villains that are currently trying to help All For One during this fight as well will be subdued in a matter of seconds, because Izuku would shoot his Omega Beams, knocking out the likes of Shigaraki, Hirogiri, and any other villains that are left over, and he immediately fuses his telekinesis to just imprison them and put them basically in a spot where they cannot leave and they cannot go anywhere, holding them entirely as he flies up to face down All For One with All Might by his side. All Might tells him that this is a fight for himself and this is a fight for him to do alone, but Izuku refuses to allow that to happen, telling him that All For One falls today and the rest of the League of Villains will be vanquished. In which All For One is completely shocked, and even Izuku can hear the thoughts of All For One. This is the first time in his life where he doesn't know what's going to happen, in which Izuku would laugh and tell All For One that he's not as big, as strong, or even as scary as he once thought he was, that he knows exactly what he wants to do, exactly what he's going to do, and frankly, he's going to be behind bars with everyone else, and nothing is going to stop it. In which Izuku tells him and shows him that he is so much stronger than he could possibly imagine, in which it would force All For One's hand to do something that he never knew he would do, at least not this early, and that would release all, if not every last Nomu he possibly has. And this is to the Doctor's dismay, but he says that he has no choice. It doesn't matter if they're finished, it doesn't matter if they're fixed, it doesn't matter if they're strong enough. They need every last one, because this right here is truly the final gambit. All of them would begin flooding out as heroes would begin trying to face and fend off as many as possible. Izuku would be forced to even allow All Might to take on All For One by himself, and he's making sure as well that Shigaraki and many others do not get away. With his Omega Beams, with his strength, he's able to mow through a ton of the Nomus, being that these Nomus, they are not human anymore, they're not even alive, so killing them is not of just out of this world idea. He definitely pulls the trigger as quick as possible, disintegrating Nomu after Nomu, and as he does this and continues to do this, he feels the shakes and the quakes of All Might and All For One clashing over and over and over again. Izuku mows down Nomu after Nomu, and even focuses down some of the stronger Nomus he's ever seen, some that even actually fight back, some that are even capable of fighting back against himself. But luckily he's able to get the upper hand with his high level of IQ and his skilled combat prowess. He's able to take them down as well. And let's just say a lot of the heroes watch this and they begin to think that this version, this person, and this version of Izuku, this being that is doing all of this, well, he is no student. He's already ascended far beyond that. But that is for another time and another talk, because this could be the end of All For One's legacy right here and right now. Nomu after Nomu falls, and after all of them are gone, it would just be All For One and All Might standing in front of each other with one last fight and one last clash. One United States of Smash going head to head with All For One would send him plummeting to the ground, knocking him out entirely, and a small version of All Might would put up his fist and would point to the camera and say that it is now your turn and that you are next. Immediately everybody cheers. Everybody that is in other cities watching this unfold cheer, and they're all happy and excited. But luckily for now, the heroes stand victorious and everybody is safe. All For One is gone, or at least put in prison. So is Shigaraki and the rest of the League of Villains, and that includes people like Dabi and many others. And it seems as if everything is at peace, at least for now, because we know that there are many things leading up to this that may occur. But it seems as if Izuku is going to get a nice surprise because when he arrives back at UA High School, it seems as if there's a test and many other tests sitting right in front of him, and they tell him that if he's as smart, as intelligent, as capable, and as everything that he is basically shown he is, well then all of this should be no problem at all, and this will accelerate his hero work process and would accelerate him straight out of UA High School into the pro hero scene. Izuku Midoriya stands there looking at the papers in complete awe. So you're telling me that if I pass all of this, that I can be a pro hero? Aizawa would tell him that that is correct, and Izuku would be extremely excited because that's all he ever wanted, to be a pro hero. But he has to now give a new goal, and it's not just to be a pro hero, it's to be the #1 pro hero in the world. But that is for another part, and for part 5 of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Darkseid. Izuku Midoriya has now tested through the entirety of UA High School and now officially graduates and heads on to pro hero work. But we all know he's very, very young, being that of around 16 years old. So there's still a lot of things he has to figure out on his own. Of course, his mother is going to help him, and he's going to get some help from some other people as well. But it all starts with the idea of him either joining an agency or him trying his best to kind of structure his own agency or kind of do solo hero work. This is something that Izuku hasn't really thought about very often and hasn't really thought about to a large degree. Because, well, he really was expecting to actually have to stay in UA High School for quite a bit, but that actually didn't end up happening. So he's trying to figure out what is he supposed to do in terms of, does he go to an agency? Does he do solo work? And well, that answer would come very quickly when he's at home, because let's just say his mailbox would be filled to the absolute brim with letter after letter after letter after letter. All of these letters packed up, he would begin looking through all of them, and it would be hero agency after hero agency, ranging from some miscellaneous hero that nobody really has heard of to people like Sir Night-Eye and Endeavor, people that are totally different level. And he would be looking at them, and on top of the experience, on top of just the agency itself, there's something else that would catch his eye, something else to be very considerate about, and that is the price tag. Yes, he is no hero student, he is no normal student, he is now a hero, and he looks to see that there are price tags on all of these hero agencies, and it seems as if Sir Night-Eye and Endeavor are willing to fork over the most amount of money. And let's just say this would make him a pretty well off person, and would make it so that his mother wouldn't have to work another day in her life at all. Making that type of money is something very foreign to Izuku Midoriya, especially because we're talking, he just came out of being a student. Of course, he could have made tons and tons and tons of money through his intellect, through doing whatever, but I mean, he's really only focused on doing this. I mean, he has helped his mother quite a bit in terms of, like, you know, making money beforehand, and has, you know, made sure that she was okay. But he didn't make enough to where they were so well off that she wouldn't have to worry ever again, and he wouldn't have to worry ever again. So having this extra money for sure would be something that would be very, very, very useful for Izuku. Now, he does decide to go with Sir Night-Eye, and it has a lot to do with basically Sir Night-Eye himself, but also Mirio himself, because at the end of the day, he's actually, well, dealing with Mirio Togata, someone he's actually trained against, fought against, and actually dealt with quite a bit, and he knows that he has some connection to All Might. So being able to work with him, one of the big 3 members, is something that is very, 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 very good for him. And on top of that, Sir Night-Eye was a sidekick of the one and only All Might, so there's no reason not to actually work with them to a large degree, at least to a large extent. that's what he wants to do. Now, his first day would be one that he would never forget, because he would be thrusted into basically one of the largest invasions that they would be trying to set up for. And that would be the invasion of the Shia Haisai. Now, things would have occurred throughout this time that Izuku basically is setting up, getting ready, and so on. Like, Izuku has taken quite a bit of time to figure out what he wanted to do. He even did some solo work on his own, and he did quite a bit before this point. Now, this would lead him to being unknown to what the Shia Haisai truly is, but they would get information on where this one Overhaul truly is. He wasn't actually there when confronting Overhaul, but it seems as if Mirio himself, at least Mirio, was there when confronting Overhaul, and they're able to get information leading to them knowing where Overhaul is currently at. Now, this would be extremely good information, and information that they need to hold on very tightly. And Izuku is added to the force that they're going to be able to utilize to invade Overhaul itself. Now, Izuku himself, he is that person that is going to lead the charge and lead the way. He is arguably the strongest hero they have. He may be quote-unquote unknown to the rankings, at least right now, but Izuku is the strongest, and he's going to be able to walk in and easily be able to create a plan that is not only foolproof, but one that will be adaptable at every turn. Now, the invasion of the Shia Haisai all starts with, well, them trying to invade and getting confronted by many of the villains. But this giant monstrous freak that would come charging at them immediately would be absolutely nothing. Izuku would put him down in a matter of seconds, and he would show something that many others never knew he was able to do, and well, that's actually be able to grow in size. Izuku begins to grow in size and pile drives the guy into the ground, knocking him out almost instantaneously, which would shock everybody. They begin to ask how he was able to do that, but Izuku waves him off, saying that he has a lot of tricks up his sleeve, let's just say that. The invasion would then ensue, and they would continue barreling through as Mirio and Izuku would take the front lines to try and find Overhaul. And let's just say they would eventually find him. Overhaul would be holding on to Eri and trying to get her out of there, but Mirio would stop him, and immediately Izuku would be looking for an opportunity to take Overhaul down. But it seems like Overhaul, well, he thought he was prepared for this, getting people ready to shoot quirk canceling bullets at them, and even using Eri as a decoy, in which maybe they can get, well, some sort, or get her to be so scared that Mirio or Izuku tries to block a quirk canceling bullet with their body, and that would end up being their fall and their faulty, in which they would shoot those bullets at, well, Eri, and immediately Izuku would jump into action, going to block them. But what they didn't understand was that Izuku, well, he's bulletproof. This is not going to hurt him, not going to change. And let's just say this, what he has in terms of power isn't necessarily what they would think a quirk truly would be, because this isn't a quirk. The powers that he has is from a godly-like being that died a long time ago, or at least a form of him died a long time ago. This right here is something that none of them would understand. And when Izuku would block the bullets, well, they would all be sitting there in shock when his eyes continue to grow or glow red, and his eyes continue, well, to show these laser-like things, being that of Omega beams, and immediately, well, the beams go crossing, eliminating or at least knocking out all of the people that are in the rafters ready to shoot quirk canceling bullets at them, and also beaming Overhaul straight to the back in preparation to try and knock him out. Overhaul would be absolutely injured by this and try to basically regenerate or try to regenerate himself to a large degree, but immediately Izuku would follow up, and so would Mirio, punching him straight in the jaw, knocking him clean out cold before he could even do a single thing more. Now this right here is absolutely insane, because Izuku and Mirio working together, well, they were able to take down Overhaul very swiftly, and this would lead them to being able to help with everyone else in the base of the Shia Haisai, so nobody else would even have to basically worry or get injured to a large degree. Now, this would be perfect in like the overall grand scheme of things, because, well, it was a clean sweep. Sir Night-Eye's not dead, nobody else is really injured, and it all just turns out to be perfectly registered in terms of just finishing off the Shia Haisai. Now, of course, there are many other villains to come and many other people that are going to come very, very soon, or at least there are many people that they're going to have to deal with, but that's not the only thing that they're going to have to deal with, of course, because this is hero work. Now, of course, Izuku is now officially and has been officially part of Sir Night-Eye's agency, so he does go on some miscellaneous jobs or patrols and stuff like that, and that he continues to work with them, and his extreme intellect massively helps them, like, in so many different regards. I mean, we're talking in terms of the support heroes, if they need any help, in terms of planning, in terms of anything you can possibly think of, Izuku is able to help massively, like massively, and that's just the fact of it. He's able to help so much more than you could possibly imagine, and Izuku is able to just basically continue on his dream of being the hero that he's so sought after in himself, right? I mean, of course, everyone idolized All Might, and everyone idolized the hero to a large degree, but at the end of the day, Izuku right now is the hero that he wants to be. He has now become the hero that he so sought after, right? He has become someone that many would basically eventually idolize as themselves, and he would go on some simple things, you know, some simple mission and mission after mission and stuff like that. That's until the true final gambit of everything that has occurred is about to happen, because we all know All For One is in prison, Shigaraki is in prison. Know that basically their whole stash of Nomus are done and dusted, but guess what? They have one more person that is very Nomu-like, you could say. Now, this Nomu-like thing isn't necessarily what anybody would think it is, because it would be laying dormant for a very, very long time, and well, with one signal, it would come barreling out to try and free All For One from prison. And this is going to be the true showing of power for Izuku, because guess what? This is something they weren't prepared for, something they weren't ready for, and this is Gigantomachia. Unfortunately, they're not planned, ready, or even prepared to just put this monstrous being to sleep. So at the end of the day, the idea of Izuku having godlike powers is about to be put to a massive test. Immediately, this barreling creature, this giant monster, would come running toward the prison, looking to break his father of some sorts out of prison. And when he would try to break him out of prison, well, let's just say things and alarms would go off that you would never possibly imagine, because, well, many heroes, hero agencies, and everybody would be called to the scene to try and stop this being from running down and basically breaking free all of these prisoners. Now, Izuku is part of that kill squad to stop that being from doing so, and as they stand there ready to fight, this being would show his face, and he would tower even over buildings and mountains alike, and this is something they weren't expecting, not even close. This is terrifying. This is something that they didn't know was even in the kind of idea of All For One. Didn't know All For One even had something like this, and this right here, wow, it is terrifying. But Izuku stands tall and stands there waiting, and he has no fear in his eyes, no fear, and ready to actually take down this monster with the help of course, everyone else. But Izuku, yeah, he doesn't get too scared of what this monster is. And when they begin to clash with the monster, punching and kicking, and everybody begins to fight it, Endeavor shooting his flames, and also Izuku fighting alongside Mirio and many others, when they begin to do this, it is obvious that physical damage is massively reduced on this monstrous being. This is extremely difficult to injure him, and is going to be extremely difficult to put him down. But Izuku knows exactly what he needs to do, and he knows exactly what needs to happen. And he begins to tell Midnight that she needs to at least lower his defenses and utilize something to actually put him to sleep in terms of her pheromones, in which she says that she won't have enough, but Izuku says that it doesn't matter and to trust him as he now begins to accelerate and begin to grow in size. He begins to be an extremely massive person, and he begins to truly show his true godlike form, as if he's now entered a space and strength that nobody sees capable. Of course, in terms of raw strength, it seems like Gigantomachia is still able to somewhat tank some of these shots that come from Izuku. But on top of that, it seems like the Omega Beams, or the Omega Beams, that strike Gigantomachia over and over again seem to be making a massive toll on the body of Gigantomachia. Now, as this continues to occur, the pheromones begin to basically protrude, and it seems as if Izuku now has a plan to try to funnel the pheromones more and more, and that's exactly what he does, as if he forces Gigantomachia to more or less, just flat out take and breathe in the pheromones that would make him slowly but surely sleepier, giving him the opportunity to just stun him overall with his Omega Beams, and he's able to just flat out stun Gigantomachia with as much power as he possibly can. And let's just say, with no restriction of the Omega Beams, he massively hurts Gigantomachia in the process. But luckily enough, he doesn't kill him, because that's not what they want to do. But they are able to subdue him entirely, as they're able to eventually get as much kind of captivity as possible, or a giant captive place as possible for Gigantomachia himself. And let's just say, after this giant victory for the heroes, there are many people out there that are going to be questioning if they really want to mess with this new hero, and if they really want to play this game with Izuku Midoriya. And he's absolutely terrifying. He may be good, he may not be evil, he may be upholding the peace, but he truly is the darker side of hero society, something that these villains will fear forever. It's as if a godlike being has finally and truly came to fruition, and a godlike being has finally showed his face. And every last villain group out there, every last villain that just decides to try and either take over the world or even rob a purse from an old lady, well, they're going to be looking over their shoulder no matter what, because this being is not your typical brand new All Might. No, this is not a new version of All Might. This is something even scarier. All Might would have dropped basically crime rates down to absolutely nothing, but Izuku would strike fear that nobody else could possibly imagine, because it was as if he was some flying around god that nobody knew where he came from, and no one knew what his quirk truly was. The powers that came out of his eyes, the ability to enhance his own strength, grow in size, the intellect, and so much more. There's no question that that is no quirk. That is a gift from the gods, or a god himself. They don't know, but at the end of the day, many villains would go into retirement, and many villains would hide, terrified of the idea that Izuku Midoriya would one day stop them from doing crime or doing exactly as they wished to do. And this would lead Izuku to helping out even further in different countries, leaving and even going to, the United States, and maybe even further than that, go on and go to Europe and other countries within Europe and such like that. Now, with that said, Izuku would further on be a worldwide hero, but his main place and his place always will be in Japan. In Japan specifically, because he really was going to be the next #1 hero, and spoiler alert, that's exactly what he would end up being, because Izuku Midoriya is not the next All Might, but he was the next best hero in line. And, well, let's just say, in years to come, maybe 10, 15, 20 years, people will be saying that they want to be the next Izuku Midoriya. But with that said, if you enjoyed, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below. That's the end of What If Deku Was the Reincarnation of Darkseid. And if you enjoyed the series, please show some love, like I said. And yeah, that's all I really have to say. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day, excuse me. Peace.